They thought taking Noah Cross would break his father. They were wrong. From the shadows, Daniel Cross watched his son disappear, and in that moment, the quiet life he had spent 15 years protecting began to collapse. This wasn't a random disappearance. Someone wanted Daniel to follow. The moment Daniel realized Noah was being used as bait, he knew there was only one place left to turn. Inside the case wasn't just his past. It was the man he had spent 15 years trying to bury. Because the people behind Noah's disappearance weren't looking for revenge. They were looking for Daniel Cross. They believed they were following a broken father. They had no idea they had awakened the only man who had spent 15 years hiding in plain sight.
They thought taking Noah Cross would force his father to surrender. Instead, they awakened the one man the world believed had disappeared 15 years ago. Every clue leads deeper into a conspiracy built on buried secrets, forgotten identities, and a past that refuses to stay buried. Now Daniel Cross has only one mission: find his son before time runs out. But the closer he gets to the truth, the more he realizes Noah was never the real target. What would you do if your child was taken to lure you into a deadly game? Watch until the end, because nothing is what it seems. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter of this psychological thriller. Previously on Kneel Down. After Noah Cross was taken, Daniel Cross realized it wasn't a random abduction. It was a carefully planned trap. Forced to confront the life he had buried 15 years earlier, Daniel reopened the secrets he swore he'd never touch again. As hidden truths about Elena resurfaced, one thing became terrifyingly clear. They were never hunting Noah. They were hunting Daniel. The men surrounding Daniel expected fear. They expected hesitation. They expected the same reaction they had seen from ordinary people their entire lives. A person trapped. A person calculating their chances. A person looking for an escape. They didn't understand Daniel Cross. Because Daniel wasn't looking for a way out. He was studying them. The leader stood near the entrance. Mid-40s. Calm. Confident. The kind of confidence that came from believing every situation was already controlled. Daniel had seen that type of person before. They were always the most dangerous right before they realized they were wrong. Who sent you? Daniel asked. The leader smiled. You haven't changed. Daniel remained silent, still asking questions before making decisions. That's usually how people survive. The man's smile faded slightly. Your reputation was exaggerated. Daniel looked around the room. Was it? A pause. The leader looked at his team. Take him. Two men moved forward. Daniel didn't move. Not yet. Because there was something he needed first. Information. The old Daniel had always understood one thing. A fight ended long before anyone threw a punch. It ended when one side understood the other. And these men had already revealed something. They were not here to kill him. If they wanted him dead, they would not have announced themselves. They wanted something. One of the men reached for Daniel's arm. Daniel shifted slightly. Not enough to look threatening. Just enough. The man stopped. A small movement. A small mistake. But Daniel noticed. The man was experienced. Yet he reacted to Daniel's position, meaning he knew exactly what Daniel was capable of. Interesting. You know who I am. Daniel said. The leader didn't answer. Daniel continued. But you don't know what I want. The leader looked at him. Your son. Daniel's eyes changed. Only for a second. But it was enough. The leader smiled. There it is. What? The weakness. Daniel said nothing. The leader stepped closer. 15 years ago, nobody could control you. A pause. Then you had a child. Daniel felt anger rise. He buried it immediately. The leader noticed. You still have discipline. He nodded. I understand why Elena trusted you. Daniel's expression hardened. Do not use her name. The room became quieter. Not because everyone stopped moving. Because the temperature of the conversation changed. The leader realized he had touched something deeper than anger. Pain. You loved her. Daniel looked at him. More than you could understand. The leader smiled. That's why she lost. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What did you say? Elena wasn't taken because she was careless. He walked toward the photograph on the wall. She was taken because she chose the wrong person to trust. Daniel moved closer. Explain. The leader looked at him. She trusted you. A pause. And that was the problem. Before Daniel could respond, the lights flickered. The security monitors suddenly turned on. Every screen displayed the same image. Noah, sitting in a room, alive. Daniel's entire focus shifted. For 15 years, he had trained himself not to react emotionally. But seeing his son changed everything. Noah looked tired, confused, but alive. Daniel stepped toward the screen. Where is he? The leader watched him. Now you understand. Daniel looked back. If you hurt him, the leader interrupted. He's alive because of you. Daniel froze. What? Your son was never the target. The leader continued. You were. Daniel stared at the screen. The words connected. The school. The bullying. Damien. Victor. The missing evidence. Everything. A carefully designed chain. Someone had created a situation where Daniel would be forced to return. Why? The leader smiled. Because some doors can only be opened by the person who locked them. Daniel understood. The past he buried. The secrets he destroyed. The evidence he hid. They wanted access to something. Something only Daniel knew existed. What do you want? The leader answered immediately. The Eclipse Archive. Daniel's expression remained unchanged. But inside, the answer confirmed his suspicion. They weren't chasing him because of revenge. They were searching for what Elena discovered. Suddenly, the building shook. A loud impact came from outside. Everyone turned. The leader looked toward the entrance. A mistake. A tiny moment of distraction. Daniel used it. Not with force. With precision. He moved toward the nearest exit point. The men reacted immediately. But Daniel was already moving. Not like a school security guard. Not like a frightened father. Like the man they had spent 15 years believing was dead. Within seconds, the room changed. The attackers were no longer controlling the situation. They were reacting to him. Daniel reached the hallway. The leader followed. Daniel. He stopped. Not because he was ordered. Because he heard something. A voice. Noah. The screen behind them changed. A message appeared. Come alone. Daniel looked at Elias. For the first time, Elias looked genuinely worried. That's not them. Daniel looked at him. Who is it? Elias didn't answer. Because he already knew. And whatever frightened Elias was something Daniel had not faced in 15 years. The leader watched Daniel carefully, then said, You thought Eclipse was the enemy. A pause. You were wrong. Daniel looked at the screen, at the message, at Noah, and finally understood. The people who destroyed his old life were only protecting something much bigger, and now they had his son. Daniel stared at the message on the screen. Come alone. Simple, direct, designed for one purpose, to force a decision. The men surrounding him waited. They expected him to rush toward his son. They expected emotion to replace logic. But Daniel had survived because he understood one thing better than anyone. The people who wanted you to act quickly were usually hiding what happened if you didn't. He looked at the screen again. Noah was alive. That was all that mattered. But the question remained. Who was controlling the situation? The original attackers began moving again. The leader raised his hand. Everyone stopped. He looked at Daniel. You have a choice. Daniel looked at him. Do I? The man nodded toward the screen. You can keep searching for answers. A pause. Or you can save your son. Daniel studied him. Those aren't separate choices. The leader smiled slightly. That's exactly why you're dangerous. Daniel looked back at the monitor. Noah was no longer on the screen. Only darkness remained. The message had disappeared. Someone had taken control. Someone who was above everyone in that room, including Eclipse. Hours earlier, Noah opened his eyes in an unfamiliar room. The first thing he noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that came from a place where nobody wanted to be found. He sat up slowly. His head hurt. The last thing he remembered was walking away from school. Then the black SUV. Then someone calling his name. He looked around. A small room. A table. A chair. A camera in the corner. Noah stood. The door was locked. He walked toward it. Hello. No answer. He tried again. Where am I? Nothing. For a moment, fear appeared. Then he remembered Daniel. His father had always told him, fear is information, not weakness. Information. Noah forced himself to observe. The room. The camera. The walls. The sound outside. He searched for details. Anything. Then he noticed something. A small scratch on the wall. 3 letters. EC. Noah didn't know what they meant, but he remembered hearing them before. From Damien. From Daniel. From the old documents he had accidentally seen years ago. Something connected to his father. Back in the industrial building, Daniel made his decision. I'm going. Elias looked at him. That's what they want. Daniel picked up the photograph of Elena. No. He looked at him. They want the man they think I am. A pause. I'm going as the man I chose to become. Elias studied him. You really believe you can separate the two? Daniel didn't answer immediately, because that was the question he had spent 15 years avoiding. Could he be both? The father Noah needed, and the man the world feared? Finally, Daniel spoke. I don't have to become who I was. He looked toward the door. I only need to remember what I'm capable of. Victor Kingsley watched the situation unfold from his office. For the first time in years, he was not in control. His security teams were not responding. His contacts were not answering. Someone had moved against him. His own empire was becoming a battlefield. His assistant entered quickly. Sir. Victor turned. What? We found information about Daniel Cross. Victor looked at him. And the assistant placed a file on the desk. His records were altered 15 years ago. Victor opened it. The first page contained a photograph. Not of the school security guard. A different man. Younger. Sharper. Someone with a completely different presence. Victor stared. The name underneath made his expression change. Daniel Cross. Status: deceased. Victor slowly closed the file. The man he had underestimated was not ordinary. Not even close. Daniel left the building alone. No weapons. No equipment. No backup. Only information. Elias watched from the doorway. You know this could be a trap. Daniel stopped. Everything is a trap. Then why walk into it? Daniel looked back. Because my son is inside. Elias understood. That was the difference. The old Daniel fought for missions. This Daniel fought for someone. And that made him unpredictable. The location appeared on Daniel's encrypted device. An abandoned research facility outside the city. The coordinates had no name, no owner, no records. Exactly the kind of place built for secrets. Daniel drove there alone. As he approached the entrance, he saw something unusual. The security system was active, but old, outdated, designed by people who believed nobody would ever challenge it. Daniel almost smiled. They had studied him, but they still misunderstood him. They thought the dangerous part of Daniel was his ability to fight. It wasn't. The dangerous part was that he noticed everything. He entered the facility. The lights turned on one by one. A voice echoed through the empty halls. Welcome back, Daniel. He stopped, because he knew that voice. Not from enemies. Not from files. From memories. A voice he thought he would never hear again. Then the speaker continued. You spent 15 years looking for answers. A pause. Now you finally get to meet the person who knew the truth all along. Daniel's eyes moved toward the darkness ahead, and a figure stepped forward. Someone connected to the past. Someone who should have been impossible. Daniel stood at the entrance of the abandoned research facility. The voice disappeared, but the words remained. The person who knew the truth all along. For 15 years, Daniel had searched for answers. He searched for Elena. He searched for the people who betrayed him. He searched for the reason his entire life collapsed in a single night. But he never expected the truth to be waiting for him. Not here. Not like this. The figure stepped further into the light. Daniel stopped breathing for a moment. Not from fear. From recognition. It was impossible. The person standing in front of him belonged to a chapter of his life he had already buried. Daniel. The voice was older now. Different. But familiar. Daniel stared. Marcus. The man gave a small smile. You're still the only person who says my name like that. Daniel's expression remained cold. Because Marcus Vale was supposed to be dead. 15 years ago, during the Eclipse operation, Marcus was one of the first people to disappear. His death had been confirmed. At least, that was what Daniel was told. You were alive. Marcus looked around the facility. So were you. Daniel didn't move. You knew. A pause. You knew Elena was alive. Marcus looked away. That hesitation was enough. Daniel stepped forward. Answer me. Marcus sighed. Yes. The word carried more weight than an explanation. Daniel felt something inside him break. Not because Marcus lied. Because he understood what the lie meant. Everyone had known more than him. Everyone except him. You let me search for her, Daniel said. Marcus didn't deny it. I had no choice. Daniel laughed quietly. Not with humor. With disbelief. Everyone always says that. Marcus looked at him. Because sometimes it's true. No. Daniel's voice sharpened. Sometimes people use that sentence because it's easier than admitting they were afraid. Marcus accepted the accusation. Because Daniel was right. 15 years earlier, Marcus had been Daniel's closest ally, the person who knew his methods, his weaknesses, his fears, and most importantly, the person Elena trusted. When the Eclipse operation collapsed, Marcus discovered something hidden inside the organization. A secret that went beyond governments and corporations. A network that influenced decisions from the shadows. Eclipse wasn't the organization controlling everything. It was only a shield, a name created to distract people from the real power behind it. Marcus tried to warn Daniel, but before he could, Elena found the truth first, and she made a decision that changed everything. "Where is she?" Daniel asked. Marcus looked at him. "I don't know." For the first time, anger appeared. Daniel moved closer. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not." Marcus looked exhausted. "Elena disappeared from me too." That stopped Daniel. "What?" "She left instructions." Marcus walked toward a table covered with old files. She knew if anyone found out what she discovered, they would come after Noah. Daniel looked at the documents. "Then why didn't she tell me?" Marcus was silent, and that silence hurt more than any answer. "Because she knew you." Daniel looked at him. "Explain." "She knew if you found out, you would go after them." A pause. "And you would never stop." Daniel looked away, because he couldn't deny it. Elena knew him better than anyone. She knew the darkness he fought every day. She knew what would happen if someone threatened their family. Marcus placed a file on the table. Inside was a photograph. Elena, holding a baby Noah. Daniel reached for it. On the back was a handwritten message. "Protect him from the truth until he is old enough to choose." Daniel read it twice. His fingers tightened around the photograph. She knew. Marcus nodded. She knew someone would eventually come for him. Who? Marcus looked toward the facility walls. The same people who are coming now. Daniel looked at him. "Then why take Noah?" Marcus hesitated. "Because Noah isn't just your son." Daniel's expression changed. "What does that mean?" Marcus opened another file. Inside were medical records, birth documents, research papers. Daniel stared. "What is this?" Marcus spoke quietly. Elena discovered something about her own family. A pause. Something connected to the people behind Eclipse. Daniel flipped through the pages. The information didn't make sense. Names, organizations, genetic research, hidden projects. It felt impossible. But Daniel had learned one thing in his old life. The impossible was usually just something someone wanted hidden. A noise interrupted them. Both men turned. The facility security system activated. Lights flashed. Someone had entered. Marcus looked toward the hallway. "They found us." Daniel closed the file. "Who?" Marcus's expression changed. "The people who have been searching for this information." Daniel looked at the entrance. "Then they came to the wrong place." Marcus studied him. "There he is." Daniel glanced at him. "Who?" "The man you've spent 15 years trying to bury." Daniel didn't answer, because he knew Marcus was right. The old instincts were returning. The focus, the awareness, the cold calculation. But this time was different. Before, Daniel had been fighting to survive. Now, he was fighting to bring his son home. The doors at the end of the hallway opened. A group of armed men entered. At the front was someone Daniel did not expect. Victor Kingsley. Daniel stared. The billionaire walked into the facility with a look of anger and fear. Not confidence. Fear. Victor looked at Daniel, and for the first time, he understood the mistake he had made. He had never been dealing with a security guard. He had been dealing with a man who had spent 15 years choosing not to fight. Victor Kingsley entered the abandoned facility, surrounded by armed men. But unlike every other time Daniel had seen him, Victor didn't look powerful. He looked cornered. The billionaire who controlled companies, politicians, and entire industries was no longer the man giving orders. He was a man trying to survive something bigger than himself. Daniel noticed immediately. That was the difference between ordinary people and dangerous people. Ordinary people saw what was happening. Dangerous people saw why it was happening. Victor. Daniel said his name quietly. Not with anger. Not with surprise. Almost with disappointment. Victor stopped several feet away. Daniel Cross. A pause. "I suppose congratulations are in order." Daniel looked around. "You're not here to congratulate me." Victor glanced at Marcus. Then back at Daniel. "You have no idea what you've walked into." Daniel's expression didn't change. "I know enough." Victor laughed once. "Do you?" He looked at the files on the table. "You think I'm the enemy." Daniel said nothing. Victor continued. "You think I took your son." A pause. "But you still don't understand." Daniel stepped closer. "Then explain." Victor looked at him. For a moment, the arrogance disappeared. and Daniel saw something unexpected. Fear. I didn't order Noah's disappearance. Marcus immediately looked at him. You're lying. Victor turned toward him. You think I wanted this? The billionaire's voice became sharper. My son started something he didn't understand. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Damien. Victor nodded. Damien found information he shouldn't have found. About what? Victor looked at the documents. About Eclipse. The room became silent. Daniel watched Victor carefully. A man like Victor Kingsley did not reveal secrets unless he had no choice. That meant whatever happened was worse than Daniel imagined. Your son bullied Noah, Daniel said. Victor looked away. I know. Your security company erased evidence. I know. You allowed it. Victor didn't answer. That was enough. Daniel's expression hardened. You protected him. Victor looked back. I protected my family. Daniel's voice was cold. And what did that make Noah? Victor had no answer. Because for the first time, he was forced to see the victim instead of the problem. Marcus moved toward the files. Victor, tell him what happened. Victor looked at him. You still don't trust me? No. Marcus replied. Because you gave them access. Victor's jaw tightened. I didn't know who they were. Daniel noticed the exchange. There was history between them. A history that went beyond business. What are you not telling me? Victor looked at Daniel. The organization behind Eclipse has been searching for something for years. The archive, Daniel said. Victor nodded. Yes. What's inside? Victor hesitated, then answered. The names of everyone involved. Marcus added. Not just criminals. A pause. Officials. Executives. Leaders. Daniel understood. The archive wasn't just evidence. It was a weapon. A record powerful enough to destroy anyone connected to the hidden network. And Elena found it. Victor nodded. She found part of it. Daniel looked down. Then why did she disappear? Nobody answered. That silence was the answer. They didn't know. Suddenly, every screen inside the facility turned on. A distorted image appeared. A dark room. A chair. Noah sitting in it. Daniel immediately moved toward the screen. Noah. His son's eyes lifted. For a second, their eyes met. Daniel saw something. Fear, but also determination. Noah was holding himself together, just like his father taught him. A voice came through the speakers. Family reunions are emotional. Daniel looked at the screen. Who are you? The voice ignored him. Victor Kingsley. Victor stepped forward. You. A pause. Your mistake was believing money could protect you. Victor's face changed. The voice continued. Daniel Cross. Daniel stared at the screen. You spent 15 years hiding. A pause. Now you know why. Marcus looked uneasy. That's him. Daniel glanced at him. Who? Marcus whispered. The person who rebuilt Eclipse. The voice continued. Your wife discovered the truth. The screen showed another image. Elena. Daniel froze. She tried to expose us. A pause. So we gave her a choice. Daniel stepped closer. What choice? The voice answered. Disappear. Another pause. Or watch everyone she loved become a target. Daniel's hands tightened. No. The voice continued. She chose correctly. Daniel stared at the image. For 15 years, he believed Elena was taken from him. But now he heard something different. She chose to leave. She chose to protect them. The pain was different. Because it meant she didn't abandon him. She sacrificed herself. Victor looked at Daniel. I didn't know. Daniel didn't respond. Because part of him believed him. The billionaire was guilty. But not of everything. He had been arrogant, careless, blind. But someone else had been controlling the game. The voice returned. Daniel. He looked at the screen. You spent 15 years pretending to be harmless. A pause. But you forgot something. A new message appeared. Noah is the key. Daniel stared. The voice continued. And when you come for him. A pause. We will finally see whether Daniel Cross is still alive. The screens went black. Nobody spoke. Then Victor said quietly. Daniel. Daniel turned. The billionaire looked at him. For the first time, there was no pride. No superiority. Only fear. They don't want the archive. Daniel looked toward him. What do they want? Victor answered. They want you to open it. Daniel understood. The entire chain of events. The bullying. The humiliation. The disappearance. Everything. It wasn't random. It was designed. Someone had spent months pushing him toward one moment. The moment when Daniel Cross would return. And now, the world was about to see what happened when the man who chose peace was forced back into war. Daniel stood in the darkness after the screens went black. Nobody spoke. Not because they had nothing to say. Because everyone in that room understood the same thing. The situation had changed. This was no longer about a missing teenager. It was no longer about a school fight. It was no longer about Victor Kingsley protecting his reputation. Someone had spent months building a trap, and Daniel had walked into the center of it. Marcus watched him carefully. "You need to leave." Daniel looked at him. "Where's Noah?" Marcus hesitated. "Daniel, where's my son?" The question was calm, but everyone heard the warning behind it. Marcus lowered his voice. "We don't know." Daniel stared at him. "You were the person Elena trusted." "I was." "Then find out." Marcus looked away, because he knew something Daniel didn't. The organization behind this was not the same enemy they fought 15 years ago. That enemy had rules. This one didn't. Victor walked toward the table. The billionaire looked different now. Less like a king, more like a man watching his empire collapse. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." Daniel looked at him. "Then explain." Victor picked up one of the documents. "For years, I thought I was at the top." A bitter smile appeared. "I thought money meant power." He placed the document down. "But men like us are always useful until we are not." Daniel studied him. "You worked with them." Victor didn't deny it. At first, Marcus looked at him with disgust. "You helped build their network." Victor's face hardened. "I built companies." A pause. "They used those companies." Daniel looked between them. "How long?" Victor was silent. "Then, since before you disappeared." The answer landed heavily. Daniel thought about Ridgeway Academy. Damien. The bullying. The way everyone protected him. The system. It suddenly made sense. Victor's influence wasn't just wealth. It was the result of years of connections. And someone had used those connections to reach Noah. At that moment, Daniel's phone vibrated. Everyone looked at it. Unknown number. Daniel answered. No voice. Only a video. Noah. This time, closer. His son looked directly at the camera. "Dad." Daniel's entire attention focused. Noah swallowed. "I don't know how long they will let me talk." Daniel stepped closer to the screen. "Noah, listen to me." His son's eyes became emotional. "I know." A pause. "I know who you are." Daniel froze. The room became still. Noah continued. "Damien was right about one thing." Daniel's expression changed. "He said you were hiding something." Noah looked down. "I didn't believe him." A breath. "But I saw the files." Daniel looked at Marcus. Noah continued. "I know you weren't always just a security guard." Daniel had imagined many possibilities. But not this. Not his son discovering the truth this way. "Noah." His son interrupted. "I thought you were ashamed." Daniel felt the words. "Of me?" "No." Noah shook his head. "Of yourself." The sentence hit deeper than any accusation. Because it was true. The video continued. Noah looked around. "I understand why you hid." A pause. "But you should have trusted me." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. That was the part he couldn't argue with. For 15 years, he protected Noah from the world. But he never prepared Noah for the truth. "I was trying to give you a normal life." Noah looked at the camera. "You gave me a safe life." A pause. "But not a real one." Daniel had no answer. Because his son was right. The video suddenly glitched. A voice interrupted. "Time is finished." Noah looked frightened. The screen started fading. "Dad." Daniel moved toward the screen. "Noah." The video disappeared. Daniel stood there. Silent. Then something changed. Not anger. Not rage. Something colder. Purpose. Marcus noticed. The old Daniel is back. Daniel looked at him. "No." A pause. "He isn't." He picked up the encrypted drive. The old Daniel would have gone after them. He looked toward the exit. The old Daniel would have forgotten everything else. Victor watched him. "Then what are you going to do?" Daniel answered. "I'm bringing my son home." Hours later, Daniel returned to the apartment. The same apartment where he had spent 15 years pretending to be ordinary. He walked to the hidden cabinet. This time, he didn't hesitate. He opened it completely. Inside were items from a forgotten life. Old identification. Encrypted files. A watch. A notebook. A photograph of Elena. Daniel picked up the photograph. "You wanted me to live a better life." He looked at her. "I tried." A pause. "But now I need your help." He placed the photograph carefully aside. Then he removed the final item. A sealed black case. The case he promised himself he would never open. Inside was not a weapon. Not a device. Not anything physical. It was information. The original Eclipse archive. The one Elena helped him protect. The one everyone was searching for. Daniel stared at it. For 15 years, this case represented the past. Now it represented Noah's future. Meanwhile, somewhere unknown, Noah sat alone in the room. The door opened. A man entered. Not a guard. Not a stranger. Someone Noah recognized. Damien Kingsley. Noah looked shocked. What are you doing here? Damien didn't answer immediately. The confidence he always showed at school was gone. He looked exhausted. Afraid. I need you to understand something. Noah stared at him. You kidnapped me. Damien looked down. No. A pause. I helped them find you. The truth hurt more. Noah stood. Why? Damien's expression changed. Because I thought my father was the worst person involved. A pause. I was wrong. Noah watched him. For the first time, Damien wasn't a bully. He was just another person trapped in something bigger. What do they want? Damien looked toward the door. They want your father. Noah's face tightened. Why? Damien answered quietly. Because they know something everyone else forgot. A pause. Daniel Cross is more dangerous when he has something to lose. The door closed behind Damien. Noah sat in silence. And somewhere across the city, Daniel opened the case. The world had spent 15 years trying to erase him. Now they were about to learn why. The black case sat on the table. Daniel stared at it for several seconds. 15 years. That was how long he had kept it locked away. Not because he forgot what was inside. Because he remembered too well. The last time he opened it, people died. The last time he followed the information inside, Elena disappeared. The last time he trusted his instincts completely, Daniel Cross stopped being a man. He became a weapon. And he had spent 15 years trying to prove he could live without becoming one again. But now his son was missing. The same people who destroyed his past were threatening his future. The choice had already been made. Daniel unlocked the case. Inside was a collection of encrypted drives, documents, and one handwritten journal. Elena's journal. Daniel's hand stopped when he saw her handwriting. For years, he imagined hearing her voice again. He imagined finding her. He imagined answers. But holding her words felt different. Because answers could hurt more than questions. He opened the first page. The first sentence immediately caught his attention. Daniel, if you are reading this, then I failed to keep you away from this world. His eyes moved across the page. I need you to understand something. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. Daniel stopped. The room disappeared for a moment. All he could see were those words. I left because I loved you enough to disappear. Across the city, Noah watched Damien carefully. The same boy who had spent months humiliating him now stood in front of him looking afraid. Noah couldn't understand it. You expect me to believe you? Damien looked down. No. The answer surprised him. I wouldn't believe me either. Noah remained silent. Damien continued. My father raised me to believe one thing. What? That losing meant becoming weak. A pause. So I made sure nobody could see me lose. Noah remembered every insult, every humiliation, every moment Damien enjoyed making him feel small. That doesn't excuse what you did. Damien nodded. I know. For the first time, he didn't argue. I hated you because you had something I didn't. Noah frowned. What? Damien looked at him. A father who actually cared. The confession caught Noah off guard. Damien looked away. My father never asked if I was okay. A pause. He only asked if I won. Daniel continued reading Elena's journal. The pages revealed pieces of the truth. Eclipse wasn't created as a criminal organization. It started as a secret intelligence project, a way for governments to share information without public oversight. But over time, the people controlling it realized something. Information was more powerful than weapons. Knowing someone's secrets meant controlling them. Politicians, business leaders, military officials, everyone became connected, and anyone who tried to expose them became a threat. Elena discovered the archive, a complete record of every person involved. But she also discovered something worse. The archive contained proof that someone inside Daniel's own organization had betrayed him. Someone close, someone trusted. Daniel turned the page, then stopped. A name appeared. Marcus Vale. Daniel stared. Impossible. Marcus was his closest friend. The man who helped him survive. The man who claimed to search for Elena. His eyes moved lower. A note from Elena. Daniel, I don't know if Marcus betrayed us willingly, but I know he knows more than he told you. Daniel closed the journal. Suddenly, every conversation with Marcus felt different. Every hesitation, every unanswered question, every missing detail. Daniel's phone rang. Marcus. Daniel answered. Where are you? Marcus didn't waste time. I found the location. Daniel stood. Where's Noah? Daniel. The hesitation immediately caught his attention. What happened? Marcus took a breath. The people holding Noah moved him. Where? I don't know. Daniel became silent. Then, you're lying. Marcus didn't respond. That was enough. Daniel's voice lowered. What are you hiding? A long pause. Finally, Marcus said, I found something else. What? Proof Elena was alive after the night she disappeared. Daniel's grip tightened. Where? Marcus answered. At the same facility where Noah is being held. Daniel froze. You're sure? Yes. The line went quiet. Then Marcus added. But Daniel. What? If Elena was there? A pause. She wasn't a prisoner. Daniel looked at the journal, then at the archive, then at the photograph of Noah. Everything he believed was changing. Elena wasn't just someone who vanished. She was someone who made choices. Marcus wasn't just an ally. He was someone with secrets. Victor wasn't the mastermind. He was another piece. And Noah was not taken randomly. He was connected to the truth his mother died trying to protect. Meanwhile, Noah noticed something strange about the room. The camera in the corner had been watching him constantly. But now, the red light was off. Someone had disabled it. He approached the door. It opened slightly, not locked. An opportunity. Noah hesitated. Every instinct told him this was a trap, but staying meant waiting. He stepped outside. The hallway was empty. For the first time since he was taken, nobody was watching. Then he heard a voice behind him. Leaving already? Noah turned. A man stood at the end of the hallway. Not Damien. Not a guard. Someone older. Someone Noah had never seen before. The man smiled. You have your father's eyes. Noah stepped back. Who are you? The man answered calmly. Someone who has been waiting 15 years to meet Daniel Cross's son. Noah looked around. Where is my father? The man smiled. Coming. A pause. And when he arrives, his expression changed. He'll finally learn what your mother sacrificed everything to hide. Daniel left the apartment carrying the archive. The quiet security guard was gone. The harmless father was gone. But this time, he wasn't returning as the man everyone feared. He was returning as something more dangerous. A father who knew exactly what he was fighting for. And somewhere ahead, the truth about Elena was waiting. Daniel drove through the city without turning on the radio. For 15 years, silence had been his shield. Silence allowed him to disappear. Silence allowed him to become someone ordinary. A man nobody noticed. A man nobody feared. But tonight, the silence felt different. Because every answer he found created another question. Elena was alive after she disappeared. Marcus had hidden information from him. Noah had been chosen for a reason. And somewhere behind all of it was a person who had been moving pieces long before Daniel realized there was a game. Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The old instincts were awake, but he refused to let them control him. This time, he wasn't chasing an enemy. He was chasing his son. Inside the hidden facility, Noah followed the stranger through the hallway. He didn't trust him. He didn't trust anyone anymore. Not after learning how many people had been lying to his father. The man walked ahead calmly. You should be asking questions. Noah stopped. Fine. The man looked back. Who are you? My name is Adrian. Are you with them? Adrian smiled slightly. That depends on who you think they are. Noah frowned. That's not an answer. Adrian looked at him carefully. You really are Daniel's son. Why does everyone keep saying that? Because you ask the same questions he does. Noah looked away. Where is my mother? That question changed Adrian's expression. For the first time, the confidence disappeared. Your mother was one of the bravest people I ever met. Noah stepped closer. That doesn't answer me. Adrian nodded. You're right. A pause. Because the truth is complicated. Noah's voice became sharper. I've heard that before. Adrian understood. The boy wasn't angry because he lacked information. He was angry because everyone kept deciding what he was allowed to know. Daniel arrived at the coordinates Marcus sent. An abandoned underground facility beneath an old government research center. The entrance was hidden, but Daniel found it quickly. Not because he had special equipment. Because he understood how people hid things. The best hiding places weren't always invisible. They were places people stopped looking at. Daniel entered the facility. The first thing he noticed was the age of the systems. Old, but maintained. Someone had been preserving this place. Waiting. As he walked deeper, he found photographs on the walls. Not random photographs. Records. Operations. Names. People. And then, Elena. Daniel stopped. The photograph showed her standing beside Adrian. The same man Noah was with. Daniel stared. Another piece of the puzzle. Another person who knew more than him. A sound came from behind. Daniel turned. Marcus stood there. For a moment, neither man spoke. 15 years of friendship. 15 years of unanswered questions. All reduced to one moment. You followed me, Daniel said. Marcus looked exhausted. I knew you would come here. You knew because you knew about this place. Marcus didn't answer. Daniel walked closer. How long? Marcus looked down. Since the beginning. The answer hurt more than Daniel expected. You knew Elena was here. I knew she passed through here. You let me believe she was dead. Marcus looked at him. I let you believe she was gone because that was what kept you alive. Daniel's expression hardened. You don't get to decide what I can survive. Marcus accepted that. You're right. A pause. I made choices for you because Elena asked me to. Daniel stopped. What? Marcus reached into his jacket and removed an envelope. She left this for you. Daniel stared at it. Why didn't you give it to me? Because she told me not to unless the truth came looking for you. Daniel took the envelope. His hands were steady, but his heart wasn't. The letter was short. Only a few paragraphs. Daniel, if you are reading this, then Noah is in danger. I am sorry. I know the first thing you will feel is anger. You will think I abandoned you. You will think I trusted others more than I trusted you. I didn't. I trusted you too much. That was the problem. Daniel stopped reading. The words blurred for a moment. He continued. You have always believed your greatest strength was protecting people, but your greatest weakness was believing you had to do it alone. I needed you to disappear, not because you were dangerous, because you were the only person who could stop them, but only if you learned to live first. Daniel lowered the letter. A tear formed in his eye, not from sadness, from finally understanding. Elena had never run from him. She had been preparing him. A loud alarm suddenly echoed through the facility. Marcus looked toward the hallway. They found us. Daniel folded the letter. Who? Marcus's expression changed. The real eclipse. The lights shut off. Security doors locked. A voice came through the speakers. Daniel Cross. Daniel looked upward. The voice continued. You finally opened the archive. Daniel looked at the case in his hand. So this was the plan. The voice responded. No. A pause. This was always the plan. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? The voice continued. Your wife didn't hide the archive from us. A pause. She hid it from you. Marcus looked at Daniel. Even he didn't know what came next. The speaker continued. Because the final piece of information inside that archive, a pause, is about Daniel Cross himself. The facility went silent. Daniel stared at the black case. For 15 years, he believed he was protecting the world from his past. But now he wondered, what if the truth he buried wasn't about his enemies? What if it was about him? The words echoed through the facility. The final piece of information inside that archive is about Daniel Cross himself. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something he had forgotten. Uncertainty. Not fear. Not panic. Something more dangerous. Doubt. Because enemies could be understood. Enemies wanted something. Enemies had motives. But a secret about himself? That was different. It meant there was a part of his own story he didn't know. Marcus looked at him. Daniel. Daniel raised a hand, stopping him. The voice continued through the speakers. You spent 15 years believing you buried your identity. A pause. But you never asked why they were so determined to erase you. Daniel looked toward the ceiling. Show yourself. A quiet laugh came through the speakers. You still give commands. Daniel said nothing. You haven't changed. No. Daniel answered. I changed enough to know when someone is afraid to speak face to face. Silence. For several seconds, there was no response. Then the security doors opened. A man stepped into the hallway. Older. Calm. Wearing a simple dark suit. No guards. No weapons. Just confidence. Marcus immediately recognized him. His expression changed. Robert. Daniel looked at him. Who is he? Marcus didn't answer. The man smiled. My name is Robert Voss. A pause. But Daniel knew me by another name. Daniel studied him. Nothing. No memory. No recognition. Robert noticed. Interesting. He looked at Marcus. He really doesn't know. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Know what? Robert stepped closer. The truth about the man he was before Daniel Cross. Daniel didn't like the way Robert spoke. Not because of the words. Because of the certainty. Robert wasn't trying to convince him. His voice was calm. Almost too calm. You changed my life. Marcus didn't argue. Because he knew the difference. Daniel looked back at the screen. What did you remove? Marcus hesitated. Not everything. Daniel waited. Only the memories connected to Eclipse. A pause. Your operations. Your contacts. Certain events. Daniel's expression hardened. Certain events? Marcus looked away. Elena. The name changed everything. Daniel's eyes lifted. What about Elena? Marcus didn't answer. Robert smiled slightly. Now we're getting closer. Daniel looked at him. Explain. Robert walked toward the screen. Your wife wasn't just investigating Eclipse. The file changed. A photograph appeared. Elena inside a classified facility, working beside Daniel. Daniel stared. She was part of the operation. Robert nodded. She was the person who knew you better than anyone. A pause. And the only person who knew what they did to you. Daniel looked at Marcus. You told me she disappeared. Marcus's voice was quiet. Because she wanted you to believe that. Daniel froze. What? Marcus swallowed. Elena knew if you remembered everything too quickly, the old Daniel would return. Daniel looked away. And she was right. Nobody answered. Because they all knew. The man standing there was proof. The facility lights flickered. An alert appeared on the screen. External access detected. Robert looked toward the hallway. They found us. Daniel noticed something. Robert wasn't surprised. He expected it. You knew they were coming. Robert smiled. Everyone is coming. Daniel looked at him. Why? Robert looked at the archive. Because every person involved wants the truth hidden. Marcus moved closer. Daniel, we need to leave. But Daniel didn't move. Not yet. For 15 years, he ran from answers. Now the answers were standing in front of him. He wasn't leaving without them. What happened the night Elena disappeared? Marcus closed his eyes. Then finally said, she discovered the final eclipse project. Daniel waited. The project wasn't about controlling governments. A pause. It was about controlling people. Daniel looked at the memory files. You mean me? Marcus nodded. They created operatives who could follow orders without hesitation. Robert interrupted. And Daniel was the first successful one. Daniel looked at him. Successful. Robert smiled. You weren't just an agent. A pause. You were the prototype. Across the city, Noah sat with Adrian. The room had become quieter. Noah had stopped asking where he was. Now he was asking something more important. Was my father ever happy? Adrian looked surprised by the question. Why do you ask? Because everyone talks about Daniel Cross. A pause. But I know Daniel. Adrian listened. The man who made breakfast even when he was exhausted. The man who embarrassed himself trying to learn my school projects. The man who pretended he didn't like my terrible jokes. Noah looked down. Was that real? Adrian answered immediately. Yes. Noah looked up. How do you know? Adrian smiled sadly. Because Elena spent years protecting that version of him. A pause. She didn't want the world to have Daniel Cross. She wanted you to have your father. Back at the facility, Daniel opened another file. This one was encrypted. His own access code appeared automatically. He entered it. The screen displayed a video. Daniel from 15 years earlier. The man he didn't remember being. The younger version of himself looked directly into the camera and spoke. If you're watching this. The younger Daniel paused. Then they succeeded. Present Daniel watched silently. The recording continued. You forgot. A pause. But forgetting was the point. The younger Daniel looked exhausted. One day, you will believe you chose a normal life. He looked directly into the camera. You didn't. Daniel felt a strange sensation. Like hearing a stranger explain his own thoughts. The recording continued. You chose a better life. A pause. Because Elena made you promise. Daniel leaned closer. The younger version of himself said, protect Noah. The screen changed. A final message appeared. Remember the night of the eclipse. Daniel stepped back. A sudden memory flashed. Rain. A burning building. Elena screaming his name. A child. Not Noah. Another child. Then darkness. Daniel grabbed the table. Marcus moved toward him. Daniel. Daniel pushed him away. What was that? Marcus looked terrified. You're remembering. Daniel looked at him. What happened that night? Marcus didn't answer. Robert did. You found out the truth about Eclipse. A pause. And you discovered they weren't creating soldiers. Daniel looked at him. What were they creating? Robert stared. Replacements. The word hung in the air. Daniel's face changed. What does that mean? Before Robert could answer, the entire facility lost power. A deep mechanical sound echoed through the building. Someone had entered. Marcus looked toward the door. They're here. Daniel looked at the archive, then at the darkness ahead. The past was returning. But now Daniel understood something. The greatest enemy wasn't the organization that hunted him. It wasn't Victor Kingsley. It wasn't even Eclipse. It was the truth about who Daniel Cross really was. And before the night ended, he would remember everything. The power outage lasted only a few seconds. But in those seconds, Daniel Cross remembered something. Not everything. Not yet. Just fragments. A burning building. Elena's voice. A child crying. And himself standing in the middle of it all. Not as a hero. Not as a victim. As someone who knew more than he should. The memory disappeared as quickly as it came. Daniel opened his eyes. Marcus was watching him. You saw something. Daniel looked at him. Yes. What? Daniel's expression hardened. A child. Marcus looked away. That reaction told Daniel everything. You knew. Marcus remained silent. Who was that child? Before Marcus could answer, the emergency lights turned on. A red glow filled the hallway. Then came the sound of footsteps. Multiple people. Approaching. Robert looked toward the entrance. They are here. Daniel stood. Who? Robert's face became serious. The people who created you. The facility doors opened. A group entered. No uniforms. No markings. No hesitation. At the front was a woman in her 60s. Calm. Controlled. She looked at Daniel like she had known him for years. Because she had. Daniel. Her voice was soft. Almost familiar. Daniel stared. Who are you? The woman smiled sadly. You really don't remember. Marcus stepped forward. Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Daniel looked at him. Should I know that name? Evelyn answered. You should. A pause. I was there when Daniel Cross was created. Daniel's eyes narrowed. I wasn't created. Evelyn tilted her head. That's what they told you. The words irritated him. Everyone had a different version of his life. Everyone claimed to know the truth. But nobody had ever trusted him enough to tell him. Enough. Daniel's voice became colder. You all keep talking about me like I'm a file. He stepped forward. I'm standing right here. Evelyn looked at him carefully. And that's exactly why we are here. She walked toward the archive. You think this contains information about Eclipse? She touched the case. It does. A pause. But it also contains information about the only person who survived the program. Daniel looked at her. The program. Evelyn nodded. Project Ghost. The name felt familiar. Not like something he learned. Like something he forgot. Tell me. Evelyn looked at Marcus. Then at Robert. They never told you everything. Daniel's expression changed. What didn't they tell me? Evelyn answered. You weren't selected because you were the perfect soldier. A pause. You were selected because you refused to become one. The answer confused him. Evelyn continued. Project Ghost was designed to remove emotion from intelligence operatives. Daniel listened. Fear. Attachment. Loyalty to anyone except the mission. She looked at him. But you resisted. Daniel said nothing. You formed connections. A pause. You cared about people. Her eyes softened. Especially Elena. Daniel looked at Marcus. Then why erase my memories? Marcus finally spoke. Because after the final mission, he stopped. Daniel waited. After you discovered what Eclipse was doing, you turned against them. Robert continued. You didn't just expose them. A pause. You destroyed the program. Daniel stared. Then why don't I remember? Evelyn answered. Because your mind couldn't handle what happened. Daniel looked at her. What happened? The room became silent. Then Evelyn said. The child you saw. Daniel froze. Who was he? Evelyn looked directly at him. Your son. The words hit harder than anything before. Daniel stepped back. No. Marcus looked down. Daniel. No. His voice became sharper. I have one son. Evelyn nodded. Yes. A pause. Noah. Daniel stared. Then who was the child in my memory? Evelyn answered quietly. The first child. The room went silent. Daniel couldn't process the words. The first child? Evelyn nodded. Before Noah. Daniel looked at Marcus. His face showed disbelief. You never told me. Marcus looked devastated. Because you didn't remember. Daniel's voice lowered. Who was he? Evelyn opened another file. A photograph appeared. A young boy, around 7 years old, standing beside Elena. Daniel looked at the image. Something inside him broke. Because he recognized the smile. The eyes. The expression. Not from memory. From feeling. What happened to him? Nobody answered immediately. Then Evelyn said. He was the reason Elena disappeared. Before Daniel could ask more, every screen in the facility activated. A message appeared. Noah transfer complete. Daniel immediately turned. Where is he? A new image appeared. Noah. But this time, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a woman. Daniel stopped. The entire world seemed to slow. Because he knew that face. Even after 15 years. Even after believing she was gone. Even after all the lies. Elena. Alive. The screen displayed a message beneath her image. Come alone, Daniel. Then another line appeared. Your family has been waiting. The screen went dark. Nobody spoke. Daniel stood frozen. For 15 years, he searched for a missing wife. For 15 years, he raised Noah, believing they were alone. Now the impossible truth was in front of him. Elena was alive. And she had Noah. Marcus looked at Daniel. Are you ready? Daniel stared at the dark screen. His answer was quiet. I've been waiting 15 years. He picked up the archive. But this time, a pause. I'm not coming back as Daniel Cross. Everyone looked at him. He continued. I'm coming back as Noah's father. And somewhere in the darkness, the woman he lost was waiting for him.